Hello, everybody. Welcome to Platform Sports Media. I'm Michael Scott, and this is a late edition of the Michael Scott Podcast. Today, we're going to talk all about the latest controversy facing the NFL in wake of the George Floyd tragedy. Saints quarterback Drew Brees found himself in a little bit of hot water yesterday and today when he apologized after comments he made sparked backlash regarding his position on kneeling during the national anthem in front of the American flag. Now, this really brings to light the reality that understanding is necessary for progress. So we're going to have a discussion about that here today. Here to help me, Michael Thomas, good friend and family member of mine. He's a youth leader in the community. He's going to be helping us out today. So without further ado, we're going to bring him in here right now. So sit back, relax, guys, and enjoy the show. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, cuz. How you been?
You know what? I've been fantastic. Just working all the time, working on my live streams, hanging out with my dog, working on this podcast. The list goes on and on. Work never quits. How about you?
Loving life, man. I just got back into work myself. I was off for a couple months helping with some of the group homes with my company, and now I'm back teaching the classes. I'm doing work right now with some of the folks in St. Clair County, helping them with substance use issues and some other classes going on, primarily dealing with domestic violence of all things, helping young men understand basically how to improve relationships. So when you asked me to come on, I'm hoping maybe I can help with a little bit of that perspective.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you're here today. Obviously, we've had a lot going on over the past 8, 9, 10 days, ever since George Floyd was killed during an incident by an arresting officer where that officer kneeled on his neck for 8.5 minutes. Since then, that officer has been charged with second-degree murder, and then the 3 other officers involved were actually charged yesterday with aiding and abetting murder. And what we've seen over the course of the last few weeks are peaceful protests, violence, rioting, looting, and standoffs with police in just about every major city all over the country. What was your initial reaction when you heard about what happened to George Floyd?
If I'm going to be perfectly honest, at first, one of the thoughts was, before I even knew what was going on, I was just hearing a lot of hype about it. And I'm wondering, well, is this going to be another one of those cases where the media is just trying to hype up a situation? What's really going on? What did the guy do to get to that point? And then when I really watched, I'm like, there's nothing right about what happened. I mean, this guy was murdered over an alleged $20 bill, if I'm hearing right. And I couldn't, there was no way I could see that being justified. And so it actually, for the first time in a long time, I watched something and it really put a fire in me. And I really got upset with seeing that man suffer and then finding out he died at the hands of folks that were supposed to be there to protect and serve, and instead murdered him. And as I start hearing more that the main officer involved actually had a connection and it seemed like it was more heated, it just further made it more hard on me to really grasp what was going on, and just really it got me upset. So I have started turning to some friends and asking, and it really opened my eyes up to really, in many ways, how little I've listened a lot in the past as well too. And so it's really perked my ears up.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you say you've really started to listen, because that kind of will segue into our topic, speaking about Drew Brees specifically, is a lot of these protests, riots and things of that nature that have been going on are being done in order to get the attention of white America. African Americans and other minorities have been suffering for a long time in our country because of systemic racism, social injustices, and the list goes on and on. And really, what happened with Drew Brees over the past 24 to 36 hours was he came out and made a statement about kneeling during the national anthem and how he doesn't respect anybody that would do that. And he would never think of doing that because when he thinks of the national anthem, he thinks about his grandfathers who are servicemen in the military. And also he thinks about all the other people that and what they've had to endure, throughout American history, specifically in civil rights battles. And so he stands in front of the flag during the national anthem as a way to honor those people and honor their memory. Now, point being is what people are saying, and when we talk about protest peacefully, we're talking Colin Kaepernick, who created quite the controversy in 2016 when he started kneeling during the national anthem and was blackballed from the NFL. That was his way of peaceful protest. Right. And like you said, you've started to listen, and that's really where Colin Kaepernick and the rest of the African-American community, as well as other minorities, have looked to take this. Drew Brees made the mistake of saying, this is what this national anthem and this flag means to me. Well, after this incident, what we're starting to realize is that that flag, that American flag, may not necessarily mean freedom for everybody here living in this country. And Drew Brees comes from a background in Texas where he hasn't faced some of these things that some of the minorities and maybe some of his teammates and other people in the NFL have faced. And so basically it was a real eye-opener for him because after news broke of his position yesterday, you had a ton of backlash coming from his teammates, other people around the NFL, and athletes all over America. What were your thoughts when you heard, Drew Brees' take on standing for the national anthem?
I think he finally just started realizing exactly what was happening. I think it took other friends and other athletes across the country to actually help explain it. I don't think he came from a ill heart. See, when I hear Drew Brees normally talk, I see a guy that's very faith-focused. I see a person that genuinely, I truly believe, loves people. And at the same time, as you mentioned a minute ago, people are actually looking at things from their lens. They're looking at things from their perspective, and perception is truth. For some people, that's different. And so I think what I'm hearing, especially from some of my friends within the Black community, is that there is hurt, there is pain, and maybe sometimes we just need to listen to understand instead of listening to respond. And Drew didn't do that right off the bat, and I think when he finally realized it, he was apologetic. I know I was looking at your feed earlier, and a couple of the guys disagree with that. They're basically saying, well, I just think it's a cop-out, and he's doing it because, he's got to save money or whatever. I think he's honestly coming at it from a faith perspective, looking at it from that end. I think he's apologetic. I really do think he's sorry, and he's starting to realize that. This is, for a lot of people right now, that aha moment in their faith where they're realizing truly this goes beyond our politics. This gets to the heart of like a real issue. This is really something that hundreds of years has been a problem, and we haven't always responded the appropriate way and still don't in many cases. I mean, I'm looking on a lot of my feeds now, and it's the same thing. I'm trying to bring up that I have a real issue with what's happening, and I have people coming at me, yeah, but look at all the riots that are going on. And then what they're doing is they're trying to jump on and find the closest Black person that they can find that has a opinion on the right and jump on them and say, see, they even believe that too, to try to keep that wedge going rather than just try to listen. Drew, I think, finally perked up, and now he feels sorry. And even though people are mad at him for apologizing, it's okay. I mean, if he wakes up that day and realizes, I'm wrong, good for him. I'm not mad at him. I wasn't mad at him with the flag issue either, because he's expressing that, but I'm glad he realizes that it's deeper than that, because Colin is seeing that flag as something different. Like when I look at the flag, I look at a symbol of freedom because I look at the Constitution and before that, the Declaration of Independence, and see what that's supposed to be. But at the same time, for anyone Black at that time, that's not what they had. That liberty was not there. So when the coach from the Chargers is saying, Colin's not saying that it's actually a issue with the flag as much as some of the oppression. I can hear that too. I just think we've got to listen more, and Drew finally did. And now people are going to be mad at him because, oh, now you're backtracking, when really what he's trying to do is just listen. And I think if more people, especially white folks, did that, I think we'd have a lot fewer problems with people being angry with us, because we have had for hundreds of years the upper hand in many ways. And being in that situation, we're so much far removed in some cases from what's really going on. We're not in the trenches dealing with that suffering at some levels. That doesn't mean people aren't suffering. And I recognize the police officers right now, they're getting shot needlessly, are suffering. But this is, if we can start listening to the deeper issues, we don't have to get to this point.
No, I completely agree with you. Obviously, these issues have been going on for a very, very long time, and they've plagued our communities, and they're a big reason why at this point we're still so separated. Slavery was abolished back, after the Civil War, during the Civil War era, with Abraham Lincoln, yet still we're facing these things today. We've seen major breakthroughs with Jackie Robinson, in baseball, and we've seen a lot of other things happen. But at the same time, it seems like, to me, we're further apart than ever. When I look at my feeds on social media, what I'm seeing so much right now is the separation between people, the whole, you're either with us or against us. And really, I know we spoke about this during the pre-show, is really what should be coming out of everyone's mouth, in my opinion, is we. What are we going to do to find a solution? And digressing back to the Drew Brees situation, his apology, in my opinion, obviously, I think he saw the way that it affected his teammates and other people around the league. But at the same time, when he came out and issued that apology, I think he apologized for the way it affected them. But it didn't seem like he was apologizing for his position, which a lot of people came out and kind of were slamming him for not sticking to his guns, and were saying that he was phony and that he was actually only, saying these things because, of trying to save face, basically, because of, the backlash that he received. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I agree with you that I believe Drew Brees is a good-hearted person, who's deeply rooted in his own faith. And he's a notable contributor when it comes to charities. He's a leader in the community, not only for the New Orleans Saints football team, but for all of the people of New Orleans. And I think, like any controversy, people, especially the media and especially ESPN, have the tendency to jump all over Drew Brees or anybody that might put themselves in a vulnerable position like he did.
Yeah, he's like a lot of folks right now, realizing that there's more to it. And I think it's sincere. I think people are mad right now because he was 1 minute saying one thing, another minute the next. But again, there's times where something happens and we can all of a sudden have a change, and people want to call us hypocrites and things like that. But we're allowed to change. And, if we're changing for the better, to have a better understanding of other human beings and their suffering, that's a good thing. A lot of the people that are having a difficulty with that are mad because it doesn't fit their narrative. You got a lot of people that are out there right now angry at the fact that folks are rioting and doing all these things. And they're really, what they're mad at is they can't stay comfortable anymore. Okay. I can't just post my couple memes and then move on. People are saying, no, we're done with that crap. This needs to stop. And if not, we're getting ugly. And I'm not
when you say they, are you speaking about minorities in the African American community specifically? Are you talking about progressive liberals? Who is they?
What people in general, in all categories. Like right now, I'll give you examples. So like if you're looking on the right, if you're looking at people that are very focused on the right, for example, the they in that case are individuals that are comfortable with their ideology and not wanting to see anything other than let's just keep the status quo. And the they on the left isn't necessarily just folks of color. It's whether you're left or right. What I'm seeing right now is deeper than any of this is you have powers that be that are really trying to create this wedge, and people are jumping on whatever side that they're on. So whether it's left or right or whatever it is, people are really just sticking to their guns. People are like, for example, with the president, there's things that he said that quite frankly are rooted in segregationist language. And as much as I try to support the man and I pray for him, because I think there's a lot of economic and other policies that he is doing a phenomenal job with, I think when he starts saying things like when the looting starts, the shooting starts, he created the wedge, okay? And people are going to stand up for him.
That's completely unacceptable, too. You know, you're looking for a president to de-escalate the situation, and he more so escalated it with his position. He promoted violence. He promoted the separation, and the man, when it comes to social issues, seems like he's very out of touch with what's going on in the world today.
Yeah,
and
he is.
We've seen a lot of these blunders happen. Well, we've seen a lot of these blunders happen because he's essentially a loose cannon. And despite his successes with, like you said, economics and some other policies, he's really, in my opinion, dropping the ball right now when we need him the most.
He's a guy that really knows a lot of stuff. He's brought some really good policy to this country. In many ways, he's trying to bring certain things back. And when he uses the language that he uses, he creates a divide. And he doesn't want to admit that. I do think it is actually, you know, some people want to say, well, it's just because he's older and he's a New Yorker. No, this man is smart. He knows what he's doing. I think a lot of this is political. But I also think it goes on the other side as well, too, is he's being attacked by people that, quite frankly, are trying to shift away from what we normally do to a system that keeps the separation going. I mean, we want to jump on Republicans and people on the right for creating racism. Look historically at the Democrats and being the ones that actually kept it going. When Margaret Sanger created Planned Parenthood, that was for eugenics to keep people of color from reproducing, okay? And we want to ignore that. It goes both ways. And so this is deeper. This is trying to create wedges, and they're using isolated instances to keep that going. And what I'm trying to do is just hear my friends that are suffering right now and be at their side and not let the riots and all this other stuff keep the divide going. You're absolutely right, Mike. We've got to keep it to where it's we, not individual folks. And so a lot of times when I'm saying the they from the negative end, I'm looking at groups behind the scenes trying to create the wedge. Because honestly, I'm at a point in my life where when I see people, I'm trying to see the heart of them. Okay. Dr. King talked about it as well with the content of their character. From a faith perspective, for me, when I see them, I see Christ. That's where we got to get to, when we can look at each other and look beyond the color and look at each other as human beings. We got to be as angry about this death as some people are, especially white folks that are like posting pictures of abused dogs. I mean, they'll post an animal picture, an animal being hurt, and upset about that. But then when a man's thing is a knee shoved into his neck, it's like, that's sad, and little prayer hands. We got to be as outraged about that as we are with other things. But at the same time, we can't be so outraged that we've got to start killing and hurting and then trying to shift it to say, hey, look, they're destroying their own neighborhood. Because the people that really truly care, that have a good heart, that are wanting to protest, are not wanting this death for white, black, or anybody else. They just want to be heard. And if we could do more to listen, to understand instead of respond, we can get there. We're not far off, but then in some cases we're way far off. We let these little things become huge.
You make some good points,
like the riots.
Right. You make some good points. Let's digress. We don't want to get too political. I know that's a major part in all this and what's going on. It's part of our current events and what we've been dealing with over the past 3 months with COVID-19 and now the George Floyd tragedy. Digressing back to Drew Brees and the NFL. Now, the NFL essentially blackballed Colin Kaepernick for close to the past 3 years. And people suggest that that's because of systemic racism. Now, the NFL issued a statement a few days ago in wake of the tragedy that they have been enlightened that we need to support solutions moving forward and members of those minority communities as they exist in the NFL. Did you get a chance to see that message, Mike? And did you buy it at all?
I honestly didn't see the message, and I think for Colin at least, it's too little, too late. He's trying to make a stand, and a lot of people. It got ugly. See, with the NFL, you're looking at like America being like it's America's sport, and so when you've got a lot of people that are supporting the flag in that, they're gonna take offense to a lot of that stuff. And so I'm glad that all the leagues are really trying to look from a social perspective at how are I mean, you're talking kids actively in sports, all races, you know, really trying to be a part of this, and it's an outlet, it's fun, it's entertaining, but at the same time there's a lot of impact that these leagues are doing with their charitable work. So I'm glad they're taking a stand. I know I was kind of teasing you a little bit the other day, even on the Nolan case as well too, the owner of the Knicks, or Dolan, sorry, I'm trying to remember his name. He's insignificant to me. I don't even like where he's at. Sorry. But with a lot of the leagues, yeah, I'm glad they're doing something about it. You know, it's a shame that it went the way it did in the first place. And now it's like with all this, it's like, all right, now we're sorry. Colin didn't do himself any favors with some of his attitude either. But the reality of it was, I think he was trying to get the point across. And sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And we just end up getting angry over things. And that's why he's where he's at. And I think that's why Drew is getting a lot of backlash right now, too, because timing sucked. I mean, he's trying to get a point across, but it's like, whoa, dude, probably could have timed that a little better, or a lot better, actually.
Definitely. So where exactly do we go from here, and where does Drew Brees go from here? What is the solution moving forward, or what action do we need to take in the community to help progress this awareness to ultimately do away with social injustice and do away with racism?
For people that feel that they are not being heard, it's as simple as listening. Sometimes we don't need to respond. We just need to be an open ear. Think about it with a partner. Like if your spouse or your significant other is wanting to vent and just kind of share some things, and especially with guys, sometimes we got to fix things. We want to fix everything. And sometimes people just want to vent. I've learned that through my studies with the domestic violence classes, trying to understand women better, in all honesty, because in many cases, the struggle with women is very similar in that you're talking historically, a lot of times the one that gets hurt is the man in the family. To be able to listen, understand, okay? I think if we do that in general, we'll make a lot of progress. If Black people are saying, I'm hurting, I just want you to listen, and we're there and we listen and say, is there anything that I can do to help? And not just try to offer the solution and jump in playing hero, that'll help a lot of it. It's not going to be the cure-all, but it's a start. It's having a heart to want to listen and to want to hear, and not just let our instincts jump in and then immediately respond with our rebuttal. We can't be posting memes that are really just inflammatory. Sometimes we just need to be quiet. And I think with Drew, I think he perked up, he listened. I think he needs to continue to listen, because I think his colleagues eventually, his teammates are going to back him up anyway. The man's a good leader. He's got a slip moment. As long as he listens and he tries to rebound from that, the guy's a winner. He's going to win anyway. But he did one thing is apologize. Now he just needs to listen a little bit and see where he goes from there. Hopefully Goodell and the rest of the crew in the NFL do the same thing.
Definitely. I agree with you. He definitely needs to educate himself a little bit more. We all do, because we all need to be more aware of what's going on and why a lot of our friends and colleagues, peers are suffering, And at the end of the day, he's apologized, and, life is going to go on for the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees. But I think that life will be changed forever by this incident. And it's interesting to see where exactly this will go specifically with Brees. As you know, he's already at the end of his football career. He's likely has 1 year remaining. He has 2 years left on his contract, but he's already worked out a deal to enter broadcasting after he's done with football. Do you see this incident impacting his job as an analyst with NBC after he retires this season?
It could. I hope it doesn't. I mean, he's a solid guy. I think if he continues to move forward, if he continues to listen, if he takes on the support of the teammates and other people in the community, I think he can still be successful with that. I'm hoping it doesn't become another casualty in all this, because the reality of it is he's a good guy. I mean, it's not going to be a casualty anyway, because quite frankly, he makes a ton of money. He's good regardless. But I'm hoping that doesn't impede his ability. I think just him being aware of what he said, timing things better, listen, it shouldn't be an issue. I think it'll become an issue if people want it to, because they digress instead of focusing on where he's trying to go. If they try to make it continue, I don't want to continue to see these things being a race thing either. I think if we're listening, we get to loving each other, then we won't have to worry about that. I'm just, I'm always a little jaded in that people are going to try to make it that as a get even, maybe because of what happened with Colin. And as long as that doesn't devolve to that, I think he'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I was recording the Front Porch Tailgate podcast with a good friend of mine, Byron Hazley, and we were touching base on the George Floyd issue, just like we are now. And Drew Brees had come up because that news was just starting to break yesterday. One of the things that I had mentioned that I thought was important that I want to bring back up today was in the past, during civil rights movements, social issues, what we've had throughout this country are a lot of leaders, a lot of notable figures that have stepped up throughout time, specifically guys like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali, Jackie Robinson, like I mentioned earlier. The list goes on and on. What it seems like right now is that those figures are currently absent within our communities. And really, we need to urge people of both minority backgrounds and white America to join together and come out to the forefront and help us find those solutions. And guys like Drew Brees, Tom Brady, LeBron James, major names throughout the sports universe are people that we can all lean on that could help, really make some progress with these social issues. And it seems like at this point, a lot of those people have really remained silent and haven't come to the forefront and really went out to lead. You're seeing guys like Steven Jackson and other notable figures in the NBA and NFL come out and join protests and things like that. But really, to get this thing moving forward, and full steam ahead, basically, you're going to need some big names to come out and get progressive. And I think that's something that is really lacking right now.
I agree with you. People are reacting more than they're being proactive in some cases. I mean, and for a lot of cases, it's because it's a hot issue. It's not going, and
it's also early. It's also early.
Things that, yeah, and we're starting to use, like, even right now, using technology, which really makes a lot of things quicker, closer, more effective. And I think in too many cases, these devices are being used. We're hiding behind these things instead of standing out front and doing the talking. I was happy to see that in our hometown in Port Huron, we actually had a pretty peaceful rally today. Folks from the NAACP partnered with our local churches and our police, standing together in unity to address police brutality. And the police officers were there. And so I think there's hope. And I think you do have guys like LeBron's a big figure right now. I do see him standing up and saying some things. And I agree with you. We've got to get it to where it's actually, how do we talk together and make it work versus just reacting to the anger sometimes. It's hard right now because it is in the thick of it. And I think it would be one way that we can do that, especially with white guys, quite frankly, perk up the ears and listen, so that way people feel heard, so they can realize that there is solution and we're not just talking. Because if we continue to just ignore it and post our memes in opposition, we're going to see more of this. And I don't want to see it anymore. And I don't want to see any family suffering. I'm tired of seeing Black communities suffering as well, going through and dealing with like what's going on right now. Because as soon as this happened, it became in black neighborhoods where the terror was happening. And I don't want to see folks suffer like that. So I think we can listen and just sometimes not post as much stuff. And I think the celebrities can do that too. Our athletes can be there just to listen and talk, and maybe use their resources to put together opportunities for people to have like real, like lobby maybe. You know, you got a lot of PACs and other groups that are out there lobbying to get their voices heard. If they could come together and put that money in to really affect our leadership, we really need to have our we are the governing bodies. We elect representatives. We need to demand more from them, and maybe we can have those voices in the sports world, use those resources, use that connection that they have with all their fans, and really be the voice for real change versus just reacting like a lot of folks are doing right now.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. It's very early on in this entire situation. It's only been, a little over a week since George Floyd's tragic death. And we do need to start taking action. And when I say take action, we don't need to continue rioting, looting, and, continuing the hate. We need to spread the love, spread the peace. We need to reestablish the respect within all of our communities and really come together, not only at the lower levels, but on a national level as well. A lot of people out here yearn for that. They have for a very long time, and it's very capable if we get guys like LeBron James, Colin Kaepernick, Drew Brees, Tom Brady's, all your major sports figures of the world. If you get them out front pushing this forward, I would be shocked if you didn't start seeing, progress. So
right.
I think that's going to be it for tonight. We're going to wrap this up. It's getting a little bit late, but I appreciate you being on the podcast tonight. Do you have any last words for anybody out there? And does anybody out there have any questions at this point?
I just wanted to thank you for having me on. I'm awake. I'm realizing what's going on. I want to be a resource. I'm hearing folks out there. I think just keep listening. Keep being a support. Do not let the victimizer continue to play the victim in roles like this, but help the victims in the situation so that way we can get real justice. And God bless you. Love you, brother. I'll talk with you as soon as I can. Okay. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on, Mike. So with that being said, that's going to wrap it up for tonight. I appreciate you guys tuning in to Platform Sports Media. This is the early going of our live streaming that we're trying to present to you guys. We're going to be doing this more and more often. Make sure you guys reach out to us if you have any ideas for subject matter, anything you would like to see us discuss, or if you would like to hop on and discuss with us. You can always leave comments in the comment box of the live streams. We can answer those for you guys during the show. Also, we can bring you in if you have a take that you'd like to offer. And at the same time, make sure you are checking out all the social media platforms out there for the Front Porch Tailgate podcast with Byron Hazley that drops every week. There's a lot of good sports subject matter that you don't normally see on places like ESPN and Fox Sports. And then also make sure you guys are interacting with us on social media. There's a lot of places out there like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter where you can find more content and you can interact with me specifically and the rest of us here at Platform Sports Media. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and God bless. Have a great night.